Welcome to the Third Thursday podcast, where we hope to connect, encourage, and equip student ministry leaders of today. Hosted by Ben McEntee, this podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain District of the Christian and Missionary Alliance. You can listen to us on all major podcast platforms, so don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to help others be connected, encouraged, and equipped to reach students with the gospel. Now let's dive in. Here's your host, Ben.
Hello and welcome to the Third Thursday podcast, the podcast for you. Yeah, I'm looking at you. We can't disclose how we are looking at you. That's proprietary information, but we see you. Beautiful bunch of youth workers, youth pastors, and folks that love serving young people by inviting them and equipping them to live for Jesus. I am your host, Ben McEntee, and I'm here with my co-host, the Lightning McQueen to my mater, your friend and mine, Chris Tweedy of the RMD of the C&MA. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, what's up, Ben? I am wearing a reddish Lightning McQueen shirt today, so there you go.
Yeah, and I am wearing a, I don't know, what is he, a dump truck? I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It would fit. It would fit.
It would fit.
It's a flannel. It's a flannel. So.
Yeah, it's a flannel. So he would wear that. Mater would be into this, so that's cool. Hey, Chris. After our more, dare I say, intellectual discussion last week, right? We're gonna go back to the tried and true, just the super practical discussion for you, dear listener. Yes, we're talking about getting the most out of an event. So we're just gonna dive into this today. Let me set this up. Let me just set the stage, if you will. Okay, here you are. All right. You're going to an event. Maybe it's something like a conference, maybe something like a live conference. I don't know why I'm doing that voice, but I just decided to because it's fun. Okay, and you're there at this event, and the table is set for you, for your students. It's awesome. You are not speaking or doing anything. You just get to be there. And all you have to do is bring your students in, invite them to take part. So what do you do in that moment? And then what happens if your students are impacted, challenged, strengthened, or convicted at this event? And what do you do with that? Next thing to think about, what happens if you are impacted by this event, right? Do you step into that challenge and strengthening and being convicted for yourself? Or would that be too selfish of you while your students are there? Is there space at youth events for leaders such as yourself and students both to be impacted at the same time? This is what we're talking about today. And when the youth event impacts not only your students, but the youth leaders. So, Chris, can we dive into it?
Yeah, let's do it. I think one of the things, because events they're time consuming, they have a lot of energy, there's usually a lot of finance behind them. Sometimes there can be this pressure, right? Of like, oh man, like we just, even if it's unspoken, I think most people wouldn't even know how to, even parse it all out. But there's a lot to think through. And so, yeah, like you said, whether we're impacted or the students, and really a lot of these things, there's bleed over between the two, right?
Totally.
Because we want to set ourselves up to hear from the Lord, but also for our students to hear from the Lord. And so anyway, yeah, we just, what we thought maybe we do is just kind of break this out into some chunks as far as like how you and I would approach going to an event like this. So, yeah.
No, what you're saying is, and I love it, is it's not an either or proposition. It's a both and. Students and youth leaders can be impacted at events, and we want to discuss how to leverage that to the greatest influence that you can have in regards to your students and for yourself. So I think first we have that preparation, right? Preparation is key. Hey, are you doing any sort of event? Any event with students, preparing for the weeks in advance is so vital. And for you, and Chris, you were talking about this. You wrote this to be quiet with the Lord before you go on to an event. Hey, if you're going to Life Conference, before you go, take time, quality time, to sit down and be quiet with the Lord before you go. If you're saying, oh, I'm too busy. No, you don't. Please don't lose this opportunity to be quiet with the Lord, to prepare for that and invite the Lord in to do his work and really, just to prepare your students and yourself for that. I love it. Here's a question. How often do things around you or your students start to collapse right before a big event? I'll just say personally, for me, it's always Snow Craze. We go to my youth group, we go to Snow Craze at Yellowstone Alliance Adventure. We love it. The week before Snow Craze, invariably for me, is a headache of a week. And I look at that and go, oh, that's because God is ready to do something. And we're in a spiritual battle, man. We know, we understand that. We're not over spiritualizing this. This is the real thing. So, and I actually get excited when things start to collapse. I mean, I get freaked out, or at first I do sincerely, but then I go, wait a minute. God, what do you have in store? Something's going to happen, right? I mean, have you ever experienced that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty common ministry phenomenon when we are stepping out in obedience, and that there's resistance. This is in fact, there's a great article that Tozer wrote one time where he was talking about not viewing the world as a playground but as a battleground, and this is our reality, and so. Yeah, that's key, and I think with that too. I mean, you've got your time to be quiet and spend time with the Lord before, but sometimes even like on a plane, or if we're driving like on a drive somewhere, I'll just be, I'll kind of come before the Lord and just say, look, I'm busy, things are crazy, all this stuff has been happening, but Lord, here we are, and you brought me here, and I know you have something for me. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And so, Lord, I just need you to be with us, and I need you to show me these things. And there's this line from Kung Fu Panda, I think, where he says, there are no accidents. He's like, but that was an accident. He's like, there are no accidents. Honestly, there's a view of the sovereignty of God when I go to a conference where I'm just like, Lord, there are no accidents. If something happens at the conference, either with my team or maybe with a speaker or something at the event, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? I'm like, well, the Lord knew this. Like, Lord, what is it that you have here? And to me, that's just a really good preparation mindset going into something like this that I think about often.
That is so good. I've been convicted recently, just in regards to being quiet with the Lord and hearing from Him, and there's an old saying that if you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Right. And now I actually think it says, show me your podcasts and I'll show you your future, or show me what you're listening to. I'm thinking about this because you talk about being on the plane, or when you're traveling. When we're traveling, we're usually like listening to entertainment things. And I'm not against that wholeheartedly, but I've just been convicted, like, I need to really be in those moments when we're traveling, say, to an event. Easy would it be to stop, to listen to something that's entertaining or something, and instead of going like, no, this is the time to be quiet with the Lord. I can even do that while I'm traveling. And it puts our priorities into perspective, I think. And I like that. So yeah, being quiet with the Lord before and just listening for His voice. And again, it comes down to, what are you listening to? Like being quiet. I think quiet is the operative word. We don't live in a society or in a culture where we are able to be quiet very often. And in fact, it's almost scary for things to be quiet. Be quiet with the Lord, listen and hear Him. So preparation in advance, I think, is very, very key. Next, we talk about just being prepared to be engaged, right? And this is, so you're getting to the event, and you want to be prepared for yourself and your students for being engaged. And I think one of the ways you get to do that is just simply by knowing that you're going to model what you hope your students are going to do at the event, to model it, right? This is you getting the most out of an event, and also showing your students how they can also get the most out of it. So what are you doing when you're sitting down in a session? What are you hoping that your students will do during worship? You get to model that. You get to.
Yeah, there was a book, I forget which one it was now, but it was talking about being a good board member, like if you serve on a board for something. But this also applies to a team. And one of the lines in that book was, you need to be prepared to like engage in conversation. Like you're here for a reason. And I think you're right, Ben. It's easy as a leader to show up and be like, oh, I've heard this speaker, or I've read their book, or I know this, I've heard this 1,000 times. And so you kind of start to check out a little bit. And but you need to be prepared to engage and basically be the tip of the spear of what you want your students to be doing. So standing in worship and engaging and all those things. I mean, there are some additional logistical things for leaders. We all know that, but like you've really got to engage that way. So
absolutely. It's so important. It's good. Here's one big thing, Chris, that we discussed prior to coming on is when you're at an event and you're getting prepared, and don't try to take everything with you, right? What are we talking about in that? What does that mean?
Well, again, I think it comes back to the pressure sometimes that it feels like when you're at an event, especially if you're being sent, or a bunch of people, you've raised money to go somewhere, and you're like, okay, man, we're here and we got to squeeze all the good out of this event, and it's like, so people are taking notes and all this stuff. And, he's not a mentor of mine, but I've learned a lot from him. A guy named Joel Wiggins said one time, he said, if I go to a conference and I'm just looking for the one thing God has for me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's such a great word, that as we approach this, as you approach any sort of an event or a conference, there's going to be so much of it that you're not going to remember, and you just can't. There's just so much. And so just know that beforehand, and in your mind, just kind of purpose to be like, look, I'm just looking for one or two big things that God's going to show me. And it honestly, I think, really opens us up for God to speak to us.
Yes. In the way in which it opens us up to hear from the Lord is it takes the pressure off.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. That's what it does. We get to tell ourselves, I get to just be here and to just hear from the Lord and listen and glean, and I'm going to take away and not go like, I got to get all this stuff. Right. And then we're stressed and we don't just enjoy the whole event. Quick aside. This is like at my wedding, man. All right. So I was told.
Yeah, your wedding's like a conference. Do tell more.
Yeah. No, I remember a mentor saying, hey, at your wedding, when you're there, just enjoy the moment. Because some people will all the stuff is happening. You're like, I got to remember every little thing. Yeah. No. You just sit there and just enjoy it, because the people that are all going to be there, this is that one time, right? So in the same way, I mean, if this is a big event, it's something special, it's something awesome. Don't overthink it, right? Just enjoy being there, right? That's good. So you're prepared. You've prepared. You're quiet with the Lord. You're thinking about, once we get there, what's going to happen. And now you're at the event. You're there. You're at like session 1. You got your students sitting down. You're hanging out. You're engaging. And now what happens? I think here it is. You don't check out. Right? The worship band has started and your students are engaged. And I think it's so easy for us as leaders to just instantly check out and go, oh, this is a youth event for them. And right. It's not for me. And I'll just tell you, this is a failing of mine where I can easily just shut off and go, I got them here, and now here they are, and this is for them. And I can just start thinking about all the other things that are happening afterwards that I got to organize and plan, all the administrative things that need to happen. I think about this student who I got to have a conversation with about XYZ, whatever's happening, instead of actually taking the time. And I become more like a Martha and less like a Mary. I don't want to sit at the feet of Jesus. And you know what? That's wrong. And Chris, this was your input here. Don't check out. And I was like, I'm convicted. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for having this be brought to my attention. Don't check out. Have you experienced that in your ministry time, Chris?
Yeah, it's especially like occasionally I'll go to a conference like 2 years in a row, and I'll take a different group of people. And so like I might kind of know where this is headed. And that's like with youth ministry, like you kind of know where the talks are going. You're like, oh, okay, we're talking about this. I've talked to my students about that. Last week we talked about this. And it is easy to check out. It's part of that staying engaged. It's like part of it's modeling. Yeah. But part of it is like the Lord is doing something with us collectively here, and he can handle the details. I want to be here, and I want to be listening with my heart like my students are. And so yeah, really, really important to do that. Just to not check out. I remember one time when we were back when we were church planting, my buddy and I were kind of alternating speaking on Sundays. And I remember one Sunday he was up front speaking. It wasn't my Sunday, and I was in the back, like literally starting to write an email for like the newsletter or something. Right. And I just remember the Lord telling me in that moment, because we had like sermon prep together. I mean, like I really knew what he was going to be saying. And the Lord just said, do you not think that I can speak through him to you? Yeah. And it was really convicting. Like, you know what, Lord, you're right. I'm just to be here as well, and to let you minister to me by your Spirit as well. So yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah, no, it's very good, very true, very necessary for us to check ourselves. Don't check out. Check yourself at the door and say, wait a minute, I need to be ready for this. Yeah. I've been preparing for it in advance, and now here we are. And we're not in the touchdown zone yet, right? We're at the 20-yard line trying to get there, and so that's good. Hey, you're at an event, right? And speaker or worship or something happens, and there might be an opportunity for you to go, hey, this isn't really my cup of tea, or hey, this isn't really what I was hoping it to be, and criticism can come up, or just this isn't like the best. So when those things happen, what should we do? What should we do?
Well, if that last one was the one you get that convicted you, this is the one that convicts me. And the way I would kind of phrase it is like, don't get sucked into criticism and sarcasm. And what I mean by that is, you're at an event and maybe someone from the stage says something that's just wrong. I mean, just like, that's just wrong and stupid, like objectively wrong. There's a tendency in some of us, and this is just me being transparent, to be like, I'm going to just whatever, this is stupid. Like, I'm not going to listen to this guy or this lady or what. And I can get kind of sarcastic and snarky, and I can start texting the guy next to me and be like, oh, well, and this, it just starts to, kind of go off the rails a bit. And what I've learned over the years is that just because there's something that is legitimately wrong in a part of a conference, and because I don't want to minimize it and say it's just all a matter of perspective, because sometimes it is wrong. Like sometimes you leave a session or a breakout and you're like, all right, we got to fix that, like we got to have a conversation with, about this. But just because there's that element is there, it doesn't ruin all of it. It doesn't ruin the whole conference. Like I've said things that are wrong. Man, I think back on some of the stuff I've taught and I'm like, man, I wish I had that one over again. I would not have said that. That was either foolish or it was out of place or it was wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to take that same posture as a listener to be like, you know what, that wasn't a great session. But we're going to set that aside. We're not going to dwell on that. We're actually going to look to where God is doing good stuff. So to me, maybe that's not a temptation for everyone, but for me, like it's really easy to get critical at these things, especially when there's a really broad panel of speakers from different paths and streams. And so I got to watch my own soul with that, of just not being snarky.
No, I think that's important. That's good. And it's about giving grace to them. And certainly there are going to be times where wrong things are going to be said. And that does give you an opportunity then to bring that to your young people and say, hey, I heard this. Did anyone else hear this?
Yeah.
What do we think about that? And it actually opens up a conversation and a dialogue that is so good. I've had that with students before. I've been to events where we've needed to have those debriefs, and those have been some of the most impactful moments. And instead of going, "Hey, this is so wrong and dumb or wrong," it's whatever it is that we're going to say, just go, "Hey, let's talk about this," and then bring in correction where needed, or tweak things, and it is good. So I think that's so important.
And I just want to echo that again, because I don't want people to have heard me say, just ignore it. Because you're right, Ben. It actually does need to be addressed. It just needs to be addressed without sarcasm or just like bashing criticism of like, this guy's a moron, or, it definitely needs to be dealt with, especially with students, because they're like, oh, well, I guess this is the way it is. And it's like, no, that wasn't biblical. Definitely deal with it. Just do it with the right attitude.
You do. Yes, you do. And essentially it's, don't be like the way in which the world is attacking one another, and differences of opinions and differences of thought. Even is being charitable? Is that the right word here? Perhaps, maybe. Holding on to your convictions, being gracious, and speaking truth in a moment is good. So that's awesome. So hey, you're in these big sessions, but generally, like, an event has smaller breakout sessions and things. Let's say you have an opportunity to kind of, there's a smorgasbord of places where you can go. A
plethora is the word you're looking for.
And you can go to a couple of sessions with different speakers and different topics. When you do that, we're thinking about it, and our idea is, hey, if you know a really good speaker and you see that speaker's name and that's someone that you know, that you love, really regardless of the topic, that's a place to go, right?
Yeah.
That go and listen to that speaker, be impacted, hear them out, right? That's awesome. It's really follow speakers and not subjects, right? Teachers, not talks, right?
Yeah. And this kind of came from me when I was in college. I had someone say something like, take professors, not classes. It was like, hey, if there's a really good professor, like, doesn't matter what they're teaching, just you want to sit at the feet of someone who's really good at what they do. And so kind of the same idea here. Like, if you happen to be somewhere and you know a speaker, sometimes even if you know what they're speaking on, sometimes just gleaning from them can be. So just a little bit of a tidbit that I have found helpful over the years is trying to follow speakers, not subjects. So, yeah.
No, that's good. It's good. And if you don't know the speaker, if you don't know any of them, hey, see the topics that are relevant to your ministry or what you're wanting to learn and glean, and go to it.
Absolutely.
Go to it. So you have the event. You've used relational capital. You're building relationship with your students. You've allowed them to invited them and gave them opportunity to grow. You are growing yourself. The event is over. And now what happens when the event is over? And I think this is one part that is generally easily dismissed and forgotten and not dealt with. And that is this idea about, like, debriefing this trip, debriefing this event. What has God done? Schedule time. Do it before you go. This is part of your preparation process even. How are you going to debrief what has happened? And when you're doing this debrief, it's like, hey, what are the action steps I need to take or students need to take? And you're inviting your students to be a part of that. Give them space to debrief. What's the action step? What was the major learning piece, right? What was that one major takeaway, or what was the two, right? I mean, but clean that out, sift through it. Focus on it and meditate on that, think on it, and then what are you going to do about it when everything is done? When that event is done, how are you going to debrief with you and the Lord, with your team, and with your students? I think this is critical, and we can forget this a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting as we're recording this. I just got back last week. I took 6 guys down to a conference, And on the last day of the conference, at our dinner, I scheduled a debrief time for. It's actually, we're going to do it tomorrow. And I think a big part of winning in this part of doing an event well is just scheduling the time. I mean, that's half the battle, is just get it on the calendar before you even leave the event, maybe even before you go on the event. Like youth leader, if you're planning like for like live conference, like you can even before you get on the plane to go to Indianapolis say, hey, on this day, we're all going to meet and we're going to go out for ice cream, or you're going to come over to my house and we're going to do this. That's half the battle, is just having the time.
Yeah.
I think the other half of the battle is taking some time. I mean, obviously debriefing in a group setting is good, but even before that, encouraging students to take a little bit of time before you get together in the group and to go back through, any notes, or just kind of even just think through the trip. One of the things as we were prepping for this, Ben, you had this phrase that I really liked, and that is that we can sometimes substitute note taking or writing stuff down for action. Like you go to an event, you take 90 pages of notes.
Yeah,
that's probably not realistic. But let's say you take like 10 or 12 pages of notes, right? You have like a page for each session, all this stuff, and you get done with it, and you're like, okay, sweet, I've learned all this, and I'm implementing it. And it's like, no, you're not. You just wrote a bunch of stuff down. What you need to do now is you need to just kind of go back through it, and you got to figure out your own way to do that, but you've got to find some way to process that, because at some point you're going to put these notes away and probably never look at them again. And so something has got to have gotten into your soul. Like me personally, I'll handwrite a lot of notes at an event, and then like on the flight back or the day after I get home, I'll actually go back through and I'll kind of type out a condensed version. And when I get that done, like in Google Notes or something, I'll look at it and I'll kind of hit look, these 2 or 3 things came out more than once. And I'll spend some time thinking and praying about that. And then I'll probably never look at those again. Right. But that is really key for letting it get into my heart from my head. So yeah, there's some personal debrief time for the student themselves, but there's also some, like we're doing this call tomorrow, of like getting everyone that was there together. And my recommendation would probably be not to do this with an entire youth group unless the entire youth group went. Right. But to be able to say, all right, guys, we're just going to have an hour to just, what are you still thinking about? That's a great question. What are you still thinking about today, a week later? And so, yeah, really, really important part of the process.
Absolutely. And I like that idea of when you're condensing it and you're looking through your notes, you're looking for the pattern and the repetition. You go, oh, right. God is speaking. And then if you debrief with young people and you hear that too, you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is something that is for us all. Right. And that can frame where you will go with even your youth group and how you're going to lead and guide them as well. And man, it puts the youth pastor, youth worker on just the same spiritual level. I mean, in the sense that like, hey, we're on the same plane, man. We are serving the Lord, and God is speaking to us both. And the beauty of the intergenerational aspect of the church, man, I think is awesome. And so you get to see that, and then that reminds you, like, God is speaking. God speaks to all of us, and He is He's guiding and directing, and that is really, really cool.
But you have to have, and this is the thing that we'd say about this, youth leaders, you have to make space for this, though, because I think one of the lies, Ben, of the time in which we live is because we have the ability to record everything. Mm-hmm. Like I've been in seminars where people are like literally recording the seminar, and I'm thinking to myself, like, seriously, when are you going to listen to this again? Like, probably never, but you record it. And so you like, okay, I have it. And you take all this note, and now, you can do AI, you can record a seminar, and then AI will transcript it or summarize it down. And some of these are like really neat, but the reality is you still need time for that to get in from your head into someplace deeper. And there's a little bit of a lie that if we just take pages of notes and we record it all and we just gather, that we don't need to sift through it, and we don't need to sit with it. And so I think out of everything that we've talked about today on this topic, this is the one that if you could do without one thing, this is one thing you can't do without is having this time to process.
Yeah. The enemy wants nothing more than for you to write down as many notes as possible and then to do nothing with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so easy. So easy. And guilty over here.
Yeah.
So good. That's a great reminder. So you've processed, you've gleaned, and it's now like, now what happens? So what happens if you've gone to an event, you've debriefed with your students, and God has impacted them, or you debrief with yourself and the Lord and God has impacted you? What do you do? Can I say this? If God has impacted you, this is an opportunity for you to share with your students how God has impacted you. And that makes you relatable and human. And you get to share, like, God convicted me of this. I mean, we don't want to just emotionally dump and share everything, obviously, right?
Sure.
But what can you share with your students for them to go, this believer, this pastor, this youth worker, we are in the same boat, in the sense that we're trying to live for the Lord, and they're learning this and they're growing, and I can too. This is available to me. And again, this is really, it's an act of modeling. It's an act of modeling, and it's allowing them to then go, oh, I'm having this a similar yet different experience, and here's what I got. Right, I think that's so important. How do you share with students when you've been impacted? How do you create space for your students to share what they've experienced? Right, giving them space to be able to share, I think, is really, really key.
Yeah, your comment about modeling, I was actually going to say that too. I think it does make you relatable, but that's not why we do it.
Right.
Like it's a nice little side benefit. And that's not what you were saying, but what you said about modeling, that actually is why we're doing it in some ways is, like, I learned this, and this is how I'm thinking it's like impacting my life. And the students watching this, and they're learning, whether they realize it or not, they're learning, oh, this is how I change. Right. Is truth comes in, and I think about it, and I hear the voice of God, and I make some course correction in my life. I lay something down before him, or whatever it is, whatever the outcome is. We always go straight to conviction, but sometimes it's just learning something that opened my eyes to a reality about God I didn't realize. And so I think with students, to answer kind of your second question there, Ben, one of the things that we can do is we can kind of press them to just, what would be one action step from this?
Yeah.
I think sometimes there's a bit of a trap saying, like, you need to take this thing from the Lord and give a 5-year plan. That's not reality. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But to do nothing would be a little bit of malpractice as a discipler. I think maybe some in between is like, hey, what's one thing that you think the Lord might be having you to change? And then, like, how is that really going to come in to play in one concrete way? That's much more manageable, and it kind of gets them down a road of, if they can learn to ask themselves that question as God speaks to them as they get older, of like, hey, what's one thing I'm going to do to adjust? Sometimes that's a good help, but yeah.
No, that is great. And it's that God changes us. It's not about God is changing me, God is changing you, God is changing us. And that relatable thing, thank you for bringing that up. That's a side benefit, but really it's about, how is God changing people?
Yeah.
It's about him. It's about him.
Yeah. And the relatable thing is beautiful, because the other thing it does too is it lets, like, it's hopeful. Right. A student's wow, Pastor Ben heard this, and now, and then 6 months later, they're like, you know what? Ben's been different in this area since he shared that, because, like, God did something in him, and it's like, maybe God could do something in me. And so, yeah, there's so much about that as we share with one another, us, you kind of use that pronoun, like that. It's really important, and it is part of how God finishes out and refines in us some of these things.
Yeah.
So good word.
And you, Chris, saying about what are the action steps, right? Just sharing it. Again, it's like taking notes. Taking notes is not the action. Sharing it is not the action. The action is the action. What is that one step? Making it simple, boiling it down, doing that, and then moving forward. So that is so good. And really, as we wrap up and think about this, Ephesians 4:12. Right? As youth workers, we get to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. That's what we get to do. That's the mandate. That is the joy and the pleasure of doing ministry, is to build up people in the body of Christ. And hey, if you're working with young people, guess what? You're called to equip the saints for the work of ministry, because it takes all of us. What are these young people? Where are they going to be? What is God planning for them? Which ones are going to be missionaries? Which ones are going to be going overseas? Which ones are called to be in pastoral ministry? Which ones are going to get in the marketplace and share Jesus? In what ways? Right? I mean, that's what we get to do. It boils it all down to that. And we're trying to grow others, building them up in the Lord. And also, as that's happening, if we're not growing ourselves, if God isn't continually sanctifying us and changing us and transforming us, then we can't grow others. And not only are we modeling it, but we're called to live it. We do that imperfectly, but that's what we're called to do. And what a joy that is. What a joy that is. I hope that would be the joy that you would experience. Yeah.
All right. It's a good one, man. It's a good, it's a big deal going to an event, and there's this joy set before us, and it's an incredibly important time for equipping. So hopefully this has been helpful. Yeah. Totally. Just as you kind of think through, how do we really not wring out every drop of effectiveness, but really, how do we steward well these opportunities that God has given us? So,
absolutely. Yes. Well, hey, as we conclude, 3 questions we always ask. How does this affect you and your leaders? How does this affect your students, and how is God being honored through it all? And Chris, hey, I've enjoyed our discussion. Thank you for being a part and sharing and giving insight and wisdom. And listener, we hope that you've enjoyed this too. Please check out our show notes for additional resources and all that jazz. And for more insight and info, check that out. And also, if this is a helpful resource, share it with another youth worker. And hey, we're here for you. If you need anything, please reach out to us. And with that, this is a goodbye from everyone here at the Third Thursday Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Third Thursday Podcast. We hope you're leaving feeling connected, encouraged, and better equipped to reach students with the gospel. For more resources, head to rmdcma.com/youth. If this episode was helpful, share it with a friend, and we'll see you next time.